All power to the people. Welcome to the For We Are Many podcast. My name is Rob. I am the White Panther Party Minister of Education and a host on the For We Are Many podcast.
Okay, what's up? All power. This is Trisha, Minister of Human Rights.
My name is Chen Yevers. I'm an Attica brother.
All power.
All power. So today, sorry, I'm trying to see if I can get the restream chat up in a different window. I think I can. Okay, cool. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about, well, first of all, it is Holocaust Remembrance Day. So we'll be talking about that, of course. We're going to be talking about the genocide being waged in Palestine and fascism growing at home.
Indeed.
Does anybody want to kind of kick it off, I guess?
Well, I guess an important place to start would be historically that this conflict did not start in October. This conflict started on Nakba Day. It's been going on for decades. What popped off in October was merely some stuff coming to a head once again, because it's come to a head many times over. And this all started with colonization, with settler colonialism specifically, with dispossessing people of their homes, pushing them out of their ancestral homes, and flat out genocide. Period. And ever since then, the areas that were agreed to divvy up the land have been disrespected, where the Zionists are building occupier settlements in territory that they shouldn't even be stepping into. They've also turned West Bank and Gaza into all-out apartheid states, all the way down to having different license plates and different roads, depending on if you are Jewish or if you are Palestinian. So, there's a lot that goes into this, and people pretending as if this popped off on October 7th, I think it was, and that the Palestinians were the aggressors are absolutely incorrect. They're ignoring, I think it's 75 years worth of history there, something like that, of all of this going on. And that an act of self-defense and trying to decolonize their home isn't being the aggressors. All power.
All power. Well said.
Well said.
Also, well, I mean, I guess we can just like jump right into I'm going to try to tie this together here, but not only did this not start October 7th, but there has been a movement for it, or for Palestine, much longer than that as well. That being said, it's kind of come to the forefront because I don't even know the latest numbers, to be honest, but yet again, and on Holocaust Remembrance Day, no less, we are seeing a brutal attack on Rafah. And it's just like, you know how they say that history might not exactly repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
I would say that that's certainly true. But I guess that I just want to say first and foremost that my heart goes out to the people of Rafah and the people of Palestine in general. They only had like slightly under 3 hours to evacuate between the evacuation notice and the start of the assault. And this is just more of a trend that we've seen out of the Israeli occupation force since this conflict has escalated. They're routinely attacking populated areas, universities, hospitals. They don't care. They're completely indiscriminate. It is an attempted extermination of a race. It is not defense in any way, shape, or form. And that's exactly why I do not refer to them as the IDF.
Right. It's more like IOF.
Right.
It's an occupational force. It is not defense.
And I guess while we're on the topic of Palestine, I've seen a lot of really backwards social media comments about the student movement. And well, first and foremost, the students are on the right side of history, just like they were for apartheid, just like they were for Vietnam.
Yep.
Stop underestimating these kids. The kids are the future. And stop trying to say that support for Palestinian liberation is the same thing as support for Hamas. And also, who cares if they're supporting Hamas? Because you cannot equate the violence of the oppressed retaliating against with the violence of the oppressor.
That part. I'd also love to see people stop trying to equate it with anti-Semitism. For one, Palestinian people are also Semitic. For two, most of the Jewish folks around the world, including myself, stand against Zionism. And have from the start. There's even a lot of the settlers that went to Israel in the first place who were immediately against it as soon as they saw the devastation happening to the people who already lived there in order to make room for them to migrate there. And that's why there was an Israeli chapter of the Black Panther Party that teamed up with PLO, with PFLP, and started fighting back against Zionism. Look into Matzpin. That's another org that is Jewish folks that are anti-Zionist, straight out of Israel, who have been fighting back against the Zionist occupation there from the start too, because they were not okay with arriving in Israel and seeing that people were being genocided and their homes stolen for the Jews migrating there from Europe. It is not anti-Semitic to stand against a political ideology. There is nothing inherently Jewish about Zionism. It actually is founded in Christian Manifest Destiny type ideology and was pushed by Christian Zionists onto the Jewish community in Europe at the time by the UK, by NATO, by the Germans. Okay, this was something that was literally Hitler stamped, sealed, and approved because it gave the Nazis what they wanted of getting Jewish people out of Europe. And it also gave them capacity to form an ethno-state of Ashkenazim supremacy and impact other parts of the world with their colorism and racism bullshit. There's nothing Jewish about it. It actually goes against Jewish religious teachings and cultural boundaries, for one, which is why the Orthodox Jewish community has also stood up against Zionism from the start. Zionism is nothing but a political ideology, and it's a fascist one. Period. And I really fucking hate that Zionism has caused an uprise in anti-Semitism against Jewish people when, you know, we are not a monolith. We do not adhere to the same ideologies just because of having common ancestry. That doesn't apply to anybody. There's no such thing as any group of people being a monolith in their ideologies. Having Jewish ancestry doesn't make you a Zionist, nor should it. It should make you stand up against it. And especially looking back in history at the shit the Nazis did to Jewish people in Europe, and now the Zionists are doing the same thing to Mizrahim and Sephardim Jews and to Ashkenazim that stand up against them in Israel too. It's Nazism 2.0.
Rob Hall in the comments said, and the Jewish Bundists too as well, Jewish socialists who have combated Zionism for over 100 years. And Tracy Ford said, "All power, comrades." All power, Tracy and Rob.
All power.
Glad to see you guys.
Could I say something?
Go ahead. All power, comrades.
You know, just recently, one of the Attica brothers called me on the phone, and he was a Vietnam veteran. And he said, "You know something? When I was in Vietnam, I saw so much atrocities. I saw so much murders. I saw kids, babies being killed, shot by American soldiers. People used to go into their houses and just drive people out of their houses and shoot them. And you know something? It has never stopped. They're doing it in Palestine. That's just what they're doing in Palestine. Going into people's houses, driving them out into the streets and shoot them. They don't care whether they're grown-ups or kids. So I'm so glad that the students are waging such a fight, and it's only the beginning. It's only the beginning of a long struggle that is taking place within the student movement. And I'm glad. I'm glad. I was listening to Mr. Biden the other day. He made a statement. It was President speech, and he made a statement. He said that he agreed with protests as long as it's not violent, you know, and he's against violence. And I said to myself, I was sitting watching that, and my wife was behind me, and she said, "Dead right." I said, "What are you talking about? Do you know that they're the perpetrators of violence in Palestine? Don't you know that the Palestine belongs to the Palestinian people?" And I looked at her and she said, "Are you talking political?" I said, "Yeah, that's what it is. It's political." you know, and so there's a lot of people that are waking up to what's happening with the students, and I think that more support needs to be given to the students for their struggles.
All power. It also brings to mind people failing to make the historical connection there of this is Palestinian land. Well, there's no P in Arabic. It's F. It's Palestine. And that right there, you could see the correlation of that was what was mistranslated as Philistine. Okay, ancient civilization, same people. That's their ancestral land. It's Palestine, and they are Philistines, and they've been there since forever. Like,
Sorry, I'm so quiet right now. I'm trying to add. I haven't done this in a while, so I kind of forgot how much of a pain in the ass it is. But I'm trying to get this live on the website.
oh, okay. Good shit. That's while you do that, let's see what stats I can. A second since I've grabbed an update on it too. I know the last time I had looked, it was around 20,000 people that had been murdered in Palestine since October. Give me a second, I'll grab y'all an update.
That includes children too, right?
I'm sorry, what was that, comrade?
No, that includes children too, right?
Yes. It is now up to 34,535 as of a week ago.
Wow.
Roughly half of that is children.
Wow. It's a pity, man.
It's fucking shameful.
Yes.
For a long time, half of their population has been children and babies.
Yeah.
Because of the mass number of adults constantly being murdered by the IOF.
Wow.
Every time that they start shelling and shooting, half of the bodies dropping are children and babies.
Wow.
Fuck.
Well,
I mean, it's despicable that they pulled things like, pushing everybody south, telling them, well, you gotta get the fuck out of Gaza, go south down this road, and then they blocked off the corridor and started shooting and dropping explosives on them there too.
All right, we got a couple of comments. Rob Hall said, I think Congress passing the bill of calling it a hate crime to criticize Israel and saying Zionism is fascist is an anti-Semitic hate crime is giving neo-Nazis what they want with their bullshit of saying, if you want to know who is in control, look at who you cannot criticize. This is going to be used and exploited by neo-Nazis to push more Judeophobic anti-Semitism. I agree. And it's also a political statement because they are essentially outlawing the criticizing of a political ideology, right? It's nothing to do with, and they redefine what Semitism means.
Yeah, it don't work like that. It
Right.
has a strong and solid historical meaning. They don't get to redefine it.
Right. But they said that it wasn't previously clearly defined. So they let an Israeli group define Semitism, and that's the definition that Congress is rolling with for this, and it's absolutely appalling. Rob Hall also went on to say, I do agree with what you're saying, Comrade Rob, about Hamas, but I also believe communists should highlight the communist component in the United Front in the current third intifada with the PFLP and the DFLP, as well as highlighting the Palestinian Christian component in the third intifada to combat the Western and Zionist narrative that this is a religious war between Jews and Muslims. I totally agree with you. And I mean, if you want, you are welcome to join the Zoom room if you want to come on and elaborate on that further. Because I know you're way more educated on the PFLP than I am.
Probably than any of us. Give me a second and I will shoot you the link, Rob.
Well, and Rob Rich is busy too, but he knows a lot about the PFLP as well. But
yes, indeed. He should be here shortly, if I remember right.
Yeah, I tagged him and he responded saying something about something came up at home, which apparently he said earlier, but I missed that in the getting ready for the show.
Yeah, he said he'd be a little bit late. Okay. Robert Hall, you have the link.
All power. Oh, he's in the waiting room. That was quick.
Power. That's what's up.
Connecting to audio, bear with us, guys. And there he is. How you doing, comrade?
Doing all right. It's a little bit better.
Right on. Do you want to introduce yourself so that way the audience knows who you are?
Yeah, I'm Robert Hall. I am a White Panther Party Deputy Minister of Justice and EPM. and just joining on here to share some of my knowledge of Palestine.
All
All
power.
power.
All power. But yeah, no, the DFLP and PFLP go back to the late 60s. They're both communist formations, secularists, were co-founded by Palestinian Christians. And like, I do agree with what you're saying about Hamas. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of them personally, but at the same time, they are part of the United Front right now against genocide. So I give them that support for that. But I do think that communists should be pushing the PFLP and the DFLP as well, because there's a communist component to this Iftikada. And Palestinian Christians have also got the land taken as well. They're being genocided. Like, their churches are being bombed. Like, the third oldest monastery in Christianity got bombed by the Israelis past couple months. And that's a way to combat the narrative of, oh, it's a holy war between Jews and Muslims for thousands of years. That makes sense.
Yes, indeed. One thing that comes to mind too is people try to rainbow wash their arguments against Hamas. I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, you're gay. Fucking go there and see how quickly they kill you." Excuse me, hold the fucking train, because things like that. Those are secondary contradictions. The primary one right now is survival, and I don't think anybody who's out there right now is taking the time to ask folks if they're gay or straight before they lay down cover fire for them to get safely to a building and get away from the bullets raining down on them from the IOF.
I don't think you realize there probably is Palestinian LGBTQ people right now taking part in this resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Not every single Palestinian is heterosexual and cisgender. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And honestly, I think that the religious differences there, they might end up becoming less and less of an issue because of the solidarity being formed right now of these people standing together for sheer survival.
and plus, Hamas are not Wahhabis. Hamas despises Al Qaeda and ISIS. They do not like them. They're not Wahhabis whatsoever.
Right. And that's huge difference.
Out of those two, like in the past several years, it seems like Hamas is moving more towards like a liberation theology type Sunni Islam in a way.
I mean, to be honest, that's probably because they've seen the successes, and they've had time to really, like, I guess, soak in what the PFLP has been saying this whole time, and they're being proven right, I think. I think that things like that definitely tend to help. But I agree,
Well,
they do seem to be going more in a liberation direction, and
I
that's
gotta add something. Not just the PFLP, there's a DFLP as well who are communists, and the DFLP's armed wing has an all women's brigade as well.
Yeah.
So all this myth about Palestinians are misogynist, and why does the DFLP have all women's battalion in their armed wing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they tend to be far more secular, closer to like what the PLO was,
True.
Which also brings to mind that we have to remember that Hamas was funded and armed by the state of Israel to be a counter to the PLO because they were feeling pretty intimidated by the amount of political power that the PLO was holding in their capacity to negotiate for better terms as far as the land goes.
True. Although what you say though, I've seen not you all, but I've seen some people online saying that Israel started Hamas. That's false. Hamas was a break off of the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood, which in itself was a break off of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. So yes, Israel did fund them and arm them definitely as a counterweight to the more then dominant secular left PLO. But Israel did not found Hamas, and Israel did not start Palestinians on the Jihad either. But I think some people online try to say that. That's false.
Yeah, they definitely didn't found it. But when they found out about it, they were like, let's channel some stuff into this. And, try to feed there being divisiveness amongst Palestinians because of PLO being, a secular movement.
Yeah.
It was a COINTELPRO tactic type thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is why to bring that comparison to the table for the first time for this of the fascism growing at home, that is literally what is happening here too, of the fascists in government funneling resources and protection to neo-Nazi groups here to cause divisiveness amongst the proletariat.
Oh yeah, and it's no different than when CIA was helping fund and arm ISIS, Al Qaeda, and Mujahideen.
Yep. Yep. When it was convenient for them, they called them freedom fighters. When it was no longer convenient, they called them terrorists.
Oh yeah, Ronald Reagan met with the Mujahideen leaders in the 80s and said, these are freedom fighters like the founding fathers of the U.S. Like Reagan met from Oval Office as a public, opposite whatever, and praised them as freedom fighters.
Comrade Shea, you got any thoughts on this?
No, not for now.
Okay. All power. Robert, can you maybe give us some more of the historical breakdown about PFLP and DFLP?
Yeah, PFLP came out of the Arab nationalist movement, which is like a secular, nationalist, pan-Arabist movement. But then the PFLP took more of like ML communist turn, and they were started in 1967. The DFLP was a breakaway from PFLP about a year later. The PFLP was always more like ARML, anti-revisionist Marxist-Leninist, Guevara's tendency, whereas the DFLP was more like ARML / Maoist. And the DFLP, I mean, they always had armed length. The DFLP always stood for armed struggle, but they put more of a revolutionary political emphasis on things. They felt the PFLP put things more on a militarist level, which is somewhat true, somewhat not true at the same time.
How so?
But the PFLP and DFLP was literally co-founded by Palestinian Christians. Dr. George Habash, the co-founder of the PFLP, came from a Greek Orthodox Palestinian community. The founder of DFLP, I can't pronounce his name correctly, but he came out of visiting Catholic Christian community. So again, how that's a narrative of, oh, it's a holy war between Muslims and Jews for thousands of years. People tend to forget. It's weird, like Western Christians will like throw their own co-religionists under the bus in Palestine. They don't seem to realize Palestinian Christians, not just Palestinian Muslims, Palestinian Christians also got genocide in their land system as well.
Right. That's something to keep in mind too, referring back to what Rob Quarters was saying a little while ago, the long list of places that IOF is attacking that are nothing but civilians includes Christian churches, right along with the Islamic mosques, where women and children are hiding.
Yep. Like I said a little bit ago, the third oldest monastery in Christianity was destroyed by Israel bombing.
Mm-hmm. You'd think that would have been a wake-up call for the Christians here who support Israel. Like, hold the fucking train. You're blowing up churches where women and children are hiding?
And hospitals and universities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I mean, the onslaught on Rafah, I want to circle back to that because that's ongoing right now on Holocaust Remembrance Day. Then again, I don't know why I'm surprised by this. They literally bombed Bethlehem on Christmas. I mean, come on.
Right.
Anyway, Rafah was given less than 3 hours to evacuate before just an outright onslaught, as we've seen again and again and again from the IOF.
Oh God, Rafah's huge. That's got to be a population of millions. I'm gonna pull it up now and see how many people live there. 3 fucking hours. $152,950. Oh wait, no, that's 2014 stat. Hold up. 1.4 million people
Wow.
1.4 million people were given 3 hours to get the fuck out of there. I don't know why Google brought up 2014 census stats first instead of 2014. I mean 2024. Brain not fully functional yet, but yeah. How the fuck are 1.5 million people supposed to flood their way out of a city in 3 hours? Can you imagine the traffic jams?
Sure.
A lot of them have equal with even. A lot of them have to walk on foot.
Right.
And if they didn't leave, what would happen? You said 1.3 million?
1.4 million people.
4 million. They had 3 hours to vacate?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And for folks who don't have cars and are on foot, good luck. I mean, in 3 hours, what are you going to walk? A few miles? If you're in decent shape, maybe 5 or 6 miles, you're not out of the blast zone. You might not even be out of the city yet.
Wow.
All this is
well, and I mean, the city is already in ruins too. Let's not forget that. We're talking about people walking through rubble through a heavily populated city to evacuate to the north.
So we're talking a very aggressively physical level of hiking through shit that you have to climb up and over constantly.
Right.
Blows you down.
La Visualante in the comments said, yeah, that's fucking impossible.
Yeah.
I find it impossible too.
It was all tit for tat. Israel also started. Wasn't an embassy they bombed not too long ago and killed an Iranian consul or representative that was there or something. And so then Iran shot some missiles back, and they were like, and now that's the end of it if you leave it alone, and now Israel's retaliating. I believe this is part of that tit for tat going back and forth, and it's another example of Israel started some shit.
Yeah.
And is probably once again calling itself the fucking victim and being like, I'm bombing this other country in self-defense. Not how that fucking works. It's like, part of this false claim of self-defense also comes down to pretending like there's nowhere else in the world for Jewish people to go. And I've seen this being said by Jewish people who live here in the States. One was, I think, a reporter for some local rag in Philly or something saying, we have nowhere else to go. And it's like, you live in Philly. A lot of the settlers that are over there are from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But don't pretend like you had nowhere else to go. You didn't need to go there. You didn't fucking need to go there.
Brooklyn has a high population of Israelis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it always has. It's like there's already a large Jewish community right there that was already the safe space they claimed they needed to take from Palestinians to have. And it's like, no, the fuck you didn't.
Well, I think this law that's passed in Congress is going to make anti-Semitism worse here. You're going to see a rise of this law because I'm telling you, neo-Nazis are loving this right now. This is a propaganda coup for to their laps. They're loving this shit because now they can go to their demographic, they appeal and go to and say, look, see, we told you, it's a Jews control everything. We can't criticize them. See, it's a very dangerous law to pass. It's going to lead to a spike in xenophobia, I think.
I think it's really fucking ironic and, hypocritical for them to try to pretend as if, okay, like a lot of these student movements, here is a fuck ton of Jewish kids who are part of these protests. How are you going to tell a bunch of Jewish kids that they're being anti-Semitic by calling out Zionist genocide?
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
You know, the Jewish Voices for Peace, massive, massive anti-fascist organization that's been calling out Zionism for the longest.
So I am working on getting it on my computer screen right now. The Rhode Island School for Design has been on strike for about a week. There was about 50 students seizing the administration building right now.
All fucking power.
I said in the comments, hold on, let me scroll back up so I can find it. I said on the New England UPM Instagram account, I said, all power to the students. The Panther Revolution stands in solidarity.
Hell yeah.
But the RISD SJP, which is Students for Jesus Christ, Students for Justice in Palestine. Hold on, I got the video. Hold on, I'm gonna screen share.
Free Palestine! 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 Free Palestine!
I'll go back to that in a minute, but I can't. It's very loud. I've never used Instagram on my computer, so I don't know how to turn the volume.
There should be a mute button on the Insta window somewhere. Probably within the video frame. There you go.
Usually, you know, like YouTube or Facebook has a little volume slider on it, but Instagram does not, and I don't know what to do. I mean, I guess I can just mute the tab. There we go. And we can just talk about it. But before I open the video back up, I want to plug their Instagram. School for Design, Students for Justice in Palestine. RISD SJP is their Instagram handle. But obviously I pull up this one because it's happening in my neck of the woods right now, but this kind of thing has happened at a good handful of universities. And actually, I'm going to use this opportunity to say that this is what the students at Brown should have done instead of capitulating.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they got their two biggest demands, but now they have no cards left on the table and the encampment is gone. You know? I don't know why this froze.
Yeah, that's a shame that some of the camps are already picking up. What was the two demands that Brown actually met for them?
Well, I would argue personally that the one hasn't been met yet. The biggest demand was divestment from arms companies and divestment from Israeli companies, which the administration agreed to at their annual board meeting in October. The camp is gone in May for something that they say will happen in October. What the fuck are you thinking?
Okay, just became politically impotent.
Yeah. Actually, there's a Maoist organization here in Providence that wrote a position paper on what happened at Brown, and it was quite on point. I sent it to Chairman Shaka, just like, you're gonna love this, and he was just like, all power.
Send me a link to that.
What was that?
Send me a link to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I will send it right now.
If you could pop it in the comments on the feed too, that would be dope.
I can in just a second, yeah, but I'm going to read it first.
All power.
So the caption for the thing, this is a Instagram post. The caption for the thing says, while we firmly believe that it is right to rebel, the Brown University encampment was sabotaged by capitulationists who took a raw deal. We hope any student activist here in Providence or the wider United States can avoid such outcomes. And then onto the actual paper. The student uprising of spring 2024 came to Providence first with the establishment of an encampment at Brown University. Brown students bravely put their futures in their fingertips in the name of divestment. They faced constant repression from the state and the university itself. Things slowly began to simmer and the contradictions began to heighten. There was a brief moment where it seemed like the students were going to have to dare to enter a higher level of struggle if their mission for divestment was going to happen. And I would say that that's accurate because they were talking about taking such actions as what the Rhode Island School for Design is doing literally as we speak. But then, well, I'll get there. Things became tense, however, in the standoff between the students and the university. The student leadership blinked, and they negotiated concessions that are frankly unacceptable. Every step of the way, the Brown Divest Coalition and other student leaders took an opportunist position and led the mass of students who were demanding change down the road of capitulation and false promises. They let down the Palestinians who cheered on the student uprising, capitulating for their own gain. Section 2, that's the intro. Section 2, why are the concessions unacceptable? The terms that the negotiators came to did not further the cause of divestment or the cause of Palestinian national liberation. It, in fact, preserved the status quo and allowed the leadership of both sides of the struggle to walk away looking pretty. What the negotiators should have done would have been to ask for all conduct violations to be thrown out. In other words, not just the Brown 41.
Yeah.
And for total divestment from the state of Israel. What they settled for was an extension of the appeal period for conduct violation and a deal allowing student activists to present their case for okay, so I misunderstood that. To present their case for divestment, which would not be voted on until October. A year after the genocide in Gaza got kicked into third gear. It's obvious why these terms are a joke. To, quote, present the case for divestment, end quote, is not a promise for divestment, which, by the way, is how all of the media has painted it.
Right.
All this means is that a couple of high-profile individuals have to sit through an hour-long presentation 6 months from now, and they will vote regarding divestment. But we already know what that outcome is going to be. The erroneous ceasefire position. Let me take a drink of water. The ceasefire line that was rampant amongst the Brown student leadership was an extension of their capitulation. It's understandable why one might think that a permanent ceasefire is necessary. I'm just going to interject right here. I'm going to put my thumb to mark where I'm at. I'm going to interject right there. A permanent ceasefire is what caused Korea to still be divided after 70 fucking years.
Wow.
Yep.
The genocide we see on the news every day is heartbreaking, and of course we want this whole thing to stop. However, a ceasefire is not the solution here. It only prolongs the contradiction between the Israeli fascists and the occupied Palestinian people. Palestine will never be free and the genocide will never end so long as there is an Israeli state that occupies even an inch of their land. A permanent ceasefire is capitulation, as it would require the Palestinian resistance to surrender its arms and maintain the status quo. Since the only way to liberate Palestine is through the armed struggle of the Palestinian people, forcing them to give up their arms is to force them to remain colonized. The only correct position is total liberation for the Palestinian people. Another fatal error, this section is called hostility to the masses, and this is the second to last. Instagram slide. Another fatal error from the Brown student leadership was their outright hostility to the working masses of Providence. Actually, before I even read the rest of this slide, I can say with certainty that there is some truth to that. I went there in full Panther getup, and I talked to some of the regular people that were there, but the people that were organizing it didn't even look my direction. Like, I mean, to a point, I got it because I'm not a student at Brown, but like, you claim that you're there for the community, but you don't interact with the community when they show up to support you. Anyway, we, the workers and community members of Rhode Island, supported the Brown encampment with every opportunity, and many students were happy to see us supporting them. However, the leadership was constantly biting the hand that fed them. What the fuck did I just say? Community members who put themselves at far greater risk by camping out with the students were singled out and treated with contempt. Community organizers with years of experience were disrespected. Many of these instances had a tinge of underlying racism within it. Despite the organizers' use of liberal, politically correct language, there were instances where the leadership were as racist, as classist, as reactionarily deplorable as many of those who they would claim to oppose. And then the final slide, where do we go from here? Sounds a little reminiscent of What Is to Be Done, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Brown encampment is over. Liberal opportunists took something with great momentum and crashed it into the ground. The struggle goes on, however. It's important to understand that our cause is righteous. We have the masses and history on our side. There is no level of repression that can stop us. Going forward, those who dare to struggle need to understand the necessity to fight alongside the wider Providence community by practicing the 3 withs and need to avoid liquidationism at all costs. The 3 withs, I'm not that familiar with the 3 withs, if I'm honest, is a means to gain connections with the masses. It requires the student activist, the black militant, or the revolutionary to live with, work with, and struggle with the masses. These connections are necessary for any mass movement to take off. Ironically, the biggest threat to our movement is not the physical manifestations of Zionist normalization and America's settler colonial solidarity. It's within our own movement. We, under no circumstances, can ever give up the struggle. Never accept crumbs in exchange for liquidationism. We can accept only liberation, nothing less.
All power.
That is the Ocean State Student and Workers Alliance, which is a Maoist group here in Providence, and that is so on point. What do you guys think of it?
I think they did an excellent job calling out the bullshit there. They really did, and perfectly laying out why a ceasefire is tip of the iceberg, not a solution.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll advocate for a temporary ceasefire to stop the fucking killing now, but a permanent ceasefire is literally another demilitarized zone.
It sounds like it's surrendering here with ceasefire.
Sounds like it's what?
A surrendering. It's like they surrender. And it's not surrendering, man. The Palestinians will never surrender. You know, I mean, the only way they could really get liberation is through armed struggle. There's no other way. There's no other way out, you know. And for the United States government is pushing for that surrendering. You know, they always talk about a ceasefire. You know, it's crazy.
All it really will result in is going back to the same bullshit of here's the line drawn literally in the sand, and Israel crossing over that constantly with illegal settlements in West Bank and Gaza. To
Well, they
constantly,
don't give a fuck about international law. Israel's made that clear since their fucking founding.
right. I'm gonna pull up the way the land is divided up, a comparison. I saw an image recently comparing the map in I think it was in 1948 versus now. You can see how much Israel's illegal settlements have just expanded their so-called holdings and decimated Palestinian lands.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe UPM should reach out to that mouse group you're talking about, Rhode Island.
Yeah, I know one of the members actually. At one point she was in the UPM actually. Like in the first iteration of the UPM before all the stuff with Rashid. But yeah, I definitely want to build more relations with them. And I mean, on top of that, the group of students at Rhode Island School for Design, or School of Design rather, is far more radical than the Brown encampment was. And they've been on strike for over a week now. They've been occupying a building already for several days, and now they're trying to take the administration building. You know, they obviously have some sort of strategy, some sort of plan, some sort of leadership. You know, whereas Brown was just kind of, I mean, there was some pretty decent rhetoric at the rallies, but that wasn't even because of the people at the encampment necessarily. But yeah, I mean, exactly like they pointed out is exactly how I felt when I went there. I mean, you know, basically I tried to, you know, just talk to people and be like, hey, you know, the United Panzer Movement stands with you guys. But like, they didn't care. They were just there to, you know, let union the union speak and fucking them speak themselves. And it was just like a very, I don't know, man, you can tell the vibe difference between like real revolutionaries and you know, I don't know what else to call them besides like what, adventurous maybe, but capitulators at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, it'd be really cool to camp in the fucking quad for a week. And then they were like, wow, I'm exhausted. So they took literally the first deal they were offered. And it was half measures. But you want to know what was a half measure? Taking the fucking encampment down.
Yeah.
That is one of my worries with some of these encampments. It might turn out and go the way of the Chad Zone in Seattle back in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, I gave the support Chad's group support 4 years ago. Don't get me wrong. I gave him support and all that, but at the same time, you could see what was going to happen. All the mistakes and errors that are made and lack of leadership and how it's going to fall apart like it did.
Can you guys see my screen share okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the massive difference. Each one of these different maps is at a different point of land grabs from conflict, i.e., Israel being like, well, we want that too.
Yeah.
This is fucking horrendous. This looks like a map of the states would of Turtle Island prior to settler colonialism versus actual lands held now as reservations, which, like Gaza and West Bank, are, you know, just signs of apartheid shit, especially when you look at the factors of how many reservations don't even have electricity and running water, things like that, that are similar to bullshit Israel has pulled on parts of, West Bank and Gaza of like cutting off their food, cutting off their water, cutting off their power. Except in the case of the reservations, they just never got those lines ran in the first place. It's fucking genocide. How anybody can look at this and not see this as an act of genocide is fucking beyond me.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people maybe would see that and not, understand that these lands were not taken peacefully. Not that you can take land peacefully, but it's not like some sort of fucking magic where nobody died. Right? These lands were taken by military force that our tax dollars are funding.
Rob, can you end my screen share? It's not giving me the button to, and every time I try to go back to get it to try to give me the buttons, it just goes back to the previous Google screen. Thank you.
La Visualante in the comments asked a question that I would assume was to Rob Hall. It was probably before that whole rant about the Brown encampment. It is the question is, wasn't one of the biggest fears of the PFLP their ability to unite with Jewish leftist groups in Israel?
I think that was more the Israeli Communist Party called the MAKI Party, which basically pushes the two-state solution, takes seats in the Knesset, the occupation parliament. But no, they worked with, was it Matzpen? Yeah, the PFLP and DFLPs worked with Matzpen. I know that. They worked with them a lot, but I know they were leery of the Israeli Communist Party because, again, they push for the two-state solution and take seats in the Knesset, which is the occupation parliament.
Yeah, if I remember right, that is the Communist Party whose split resulted in the creation of Matzpen. It was the people who left that because their revisionist bullshit. And they were like, nope, and formed Matzpen to actually start really organizing against Zionism.
Yeah, there's really Communist Party. There's really Communist Party. They're basically crypto labor Zionists, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Also, Rob, if you can pop the link into the Restream feed, I put the link for the Matzpen documentary in the Zoom chat. That right there, excellent film to watch, folks. If you want to learn more about the history of this, there it is. That film lays it out beautifully. Lays it out beautifully.
Okay, I dropped it in the Facebook comments. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, I can only do so much. Somebody in the comments said the older generations are thoroughly brainwashed, though.
Some of them, yeah, not all of them, but most younger folks are paying more attention to certain facets that a lot of older generation folks got mind fucked about when it comes to like Red Scare propaganda and things like that, as well as pro-Israel propaganda, and where those things coalesce, they, presumed that what they were being told was correct and accurate. And yeah, there's opportunity to unfuck their minds, but for example, Comrade Shay right here, you never got mind fucked by that. And there's a lot of folks your age who didn't buy into the bullshit either. So, thankfully that's a thing, The political awareness is growing generation by generation because of having the positive influence of folks like you, Shay.
Yeah. People like Che, people like Tom Watts,
Yeah.
There's so many, the SDS, the Panthers, the Young Lords, the Brown Berets, AIM. We had so many people from your generation to to be the torchbearers and really light the way for us who are trying to do the same for the next generation, you know?
I think that the reason why the legacy continues, man, the legacy is never destroyed or never dies. It always lives on, you know. Well, you know, one of the things that you were saying, Sister Sen, was the Red Scare, and I think that the Red Scare is one of the reasons why so many people have dodged away from various things, because they're scared of the possibility of the government coming down on them, as they did in the 30s and 40s, with the Red Scare. So I think that's the reason why a lot of people right now don't even understand what's happening with Palestine, or they don't want to know. Let me say it that way, you know. But I always see what's happening over there is what's happening right here in our communities, man. The same thing. I mean, high rents is a way of chasing us out of our houses. High rent. When you base the rent, that's a way of chasing us out of there. And when you notice Harlem as an example, Harlem they're cleaning up Harlem and they're moving out a lot of African Americans right out of Harlem, which was one of the places where they grew up at, and they're chasing them out, man. So it's the same procedure. The United States repeats itself on many occasions. You just got to know how it repeats itself, and what's happening in Palestine is happening right here in the United States, but a lot of people don't even see it. A lot of people don't even see it.
Sadly, yeah. And we need to raise their awareness, because they should be noticing that the things that are happening right now of like the government trying to criminalize and violate the First Amendment by telling us we can't speak out against this fascist fucking ideology. It's literally targeting socialists and communists. It's fucking McCarthyism 2.0. One facet of it, anyways, because there's a lot of facets of McCarthyism 2.0 that have been happening a lot here. We can go back through like even just the last 20 years and see extremely fascist developments here, whether it be the NDAA of 2012 providing for indefinite detention of American citizens without fucking trial or representation, any of that shit. There's a lot of things that are happening. They're extremely fascist actions to shut down our First Amendment rights. The fucking Patriot Act. Like
the loss of net neutrality, let's not forget that one. That's why you're paying $10 a month to 15 different fucking streaming services instead of cable. That's why everything is subscription based. That's why platforms are free to censor anything that they like for any reason that they like.
Yep.
I mean, the writing's been on the wall for years. Fascism has been in this country for a very long time. And I've been waiting to get to this part of the talk because I don't like how we worded it in the title, even though I agreed to the title, right? Growing fascism at home, it's been here. It took root almost 100 years ago. Well, some may say that it was proto-fascist before fascism existed, but that's not my point. Like the merger, Benito Mussolini defined fascism as a merger between state power and corporate power. Tell me that we haven't lived under that exact definition our entire lives.
We absolutely have. The reason why I phrased the title the way that I did is because even though it has already been present for a long time, in recent years, we are seeing it grow so fucking much, not just amongst the population who are being fucking hoodwinked with racist bullshit and being brought into absolute trash ass fucking attempts at movements like White Lives Matter as a fucking rebuttal to the Black Lives Matter movement and shit like that. But we are seeing it massively grow as far as how ballsy the government itself is being about their very clear and outwardly forward fascist fucking actions. The fact that they are trying to criminalize people for exercising your First Amendment rights, that should be the biggest fucking red flag to ever slap the entire country in the face. That no matter what your political views are, you should have a fucking problem with that.
Yeah. Chip Barnes said, so capitalism is fascism? I never thought about it like that before. And I replied to it saying, it's more like capitalism is the road to fascism. But yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we don't have any actual control over the government. They are not fucking held accountable to us. They are held accountable to the wishes of the fucking billionaires that are committing legal acts of bribery under the guise of lobbying. These PACs and super PACs, they are the worst fucking thing to ever happen to any kind of democratic process. And before we even really dive into that, we have to make it very clear that we don't live in a fucking democracy. This country was not set up as a fucking democracy.
Never.
It is a constitutional fucking republic, which is why they were able to isolate political power into the hands of the few wealthy white men from the very fucking start. You literally had to be a landowner and be a white male in order to have voting power from the founding of this fucked country. So this idea of democracy was never applied from the start. They still, via the Electoral College, skew political power in that manner, even when it comes to voting, and, you know, make sure that those that are in the wealthiest and whitest fucking areas have more goddamn weight to their vote than anybody in an urban area. That's why you'll see shit like in states that are absolutely fucking rural, that they'll have up to 65 times as much voting power for one vote as one vote out of New York or LA. That's a concentration of political power. And that only even goes as far as, you know, where your vote actually fucking counts. Because let's be bluntly honest, when it comes to voting for people, your vote don't mean shit. They have already hand selected whatever fucking puppets that they want in those seats for you to choose from. You don't really have a choice because there is a paywall there. And if you are not wealthy, you don't get to run for office. So all of that in a fucking nutshell leads to where the people who do have the money to pay off the politicians, to fund their campaigns and bribe them with campaign funds, bribe them with fucking job promises of what fucking corporate head cocksuck fucking position they're going to have once they leave the government office and get ushered right into some board over a massive multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. That's who they answer to. That's who runs the country, not the people. Your vote only even really counts when it comes to local legislation of things that you can change, like in your state constitution, for example. It doesn't make a fucking bit of difference of, are you picking a Democrat or a Republican? This is how much that fucking holds. Nothing. It gets you nowhere because your only choices are who the elite have already hand select, because they know that they will get on their fucking knees for the billionaires that own and operate these corporations that actually own the government. Pure and simple. There's no fucking accountability. That's not democracy. Democracy comes with accountability, where when somebody isn't doing the job they were elected to do, you have the right to yeet them the fuck out of that seat and hold them accountable for it and replace them with somebody who will actually do the job. We don't have that option here. You might get the option to vote every 4 years on it and whatnot. But as far as actually holding them accountable as the shit happens, and go, wait a minute, you just committed a crime against the people here with this action, with this legislation. But you know what? Again, back to the First Amendment rights issue, we get fucked with for that too. You know, like when the NDAA was on the table, In 2012, Rob and I and a whole bunch of others at Occupy Flint stormed the office of Debbie Stabenow in Flint to hand deliver her a copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and tell her aide to tell her where to read the motherfuckers and discover how she committed treason by voting yes on that bill. That got us harassed even harder. And by the next week, there was a Homeland Security office set up across the street from us to stalk us. Because how dare we exercise our First Amendment right? This has been building for a long time. It's like a massive fucking pimple about to pop.
It's also funny, and then I'm going to bring up a couple of things in the comments, but it's also funny how our politics have changed since then, right? Back then we were like, using their own law against them, like, you're fucking committing treason based on what the founding fathers wrote. And now it's like, fuck what them fucking rich bastards.
Yeah. Completely. We needed some political education at the time. We had more than I would say, most folks had, but
there was still some for sure liberalism there.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, at the time I was a straight up anarchist and you were a libertarian. I'm sorry if that embarrasses you.
Chase chuckle.
Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, as far as our ethical standards, those have remained the same. We just discovered that communism was actually the best fit for what we believe needs to be done and happen in order to benefit the well-being and livelihood of everybody and for their human rights to be respected,
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, I didn't really fit in libertarian circles anyway. I was always arguing my points against theirs. My points were certainly more left-wing than theirs were even then. But that, like, honestly, the amount of like contradictions in that ideology is what pushed me further left. So,
Well, like, you didn't know it at the time that libertarian socialism was actually where your thoughts were at, and that's actually a Marxist term to describe the balance between
I haven't read Marx yet.
And responsibility to the community. Yeah, but it was already the frame of mind that you had. You just didn't know yet that you were actually socialist. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of growing up poor. Fuck. So there was a comment that I missed. How long do we have before we're an apartheid state here? And I said, I would argue that in some sense we do already, but don't meet the whole definition. I would argue that through history, we have been an apartheid state more than we are today. Look at what was done to the natives. Look at what was done to the black people that were brought over here as slaves.
Look at Jim Crow and redlining.
Yeah, I was gonna skip Jim Crow and go straight to segregation, but you're right. And then the follow-up question was, in an American apartheid, what group would be the Palestinians, and what group would be the Zionists? And ultimately, the upper middle class white community and the bourgeoisie, I would say, would probably be the Zionists, and the Palestinians would be fucking everybody else. Especially, people with pigment or disabled people, trans people. Nate's in the comments. What's up, comrade?
Hey, Nate.
Long time no see. The comments are getting pretty busy over here. Chip Barnes said, but wasn't the French Revolution about freedom? That was so we could have the freedom to own stuff.
Communism does not mean you don't own stuff. Okay, this is a beautiful teaching moment. I love this shit. There is a world of difference between private property and personal property. Private property is the means of production, okay? Like the shops where cars are built, where coats are made, where things are produced at. Anything that is a product or service that is being used as a means to exploit labor for a profit margin, that's your private property. That's what we seek to end, is there being a few hands holding the value of everybody's labor. So
and
to
land.
end, what's that?
I said and land.
Yes. To end private property would mean everybody who works somewhere becomes equal owners with the other workers there, so that you own the full value of your labor. Personal property is your home, your car, your clothing, your toothbrush, things like that. Ain't nobody who's a real communist or socialist trying to take those things away from you. We want to make sure that you have all of those, and that there's not a paywall standing between you and your human right to have shelter or food, for example. Under genuine communist ideology and practice, it would mean you're actually in a better financial position. Because tell me, are you going to make more money getting the piss ass wage that is a fraction of the wealth you produce right now, working for somebody else who owns a profit margin, which is stolen wages? Or would you make more money and therefore be in a better financial position to provide for yourself and your family if you actually owned the full value of your labor and were getting paid all of that? You know, and this is separate from things like the cost of running a business. There's always going to be overhead of equipment and maintenance, things like that. But when it comes to what's left, what would be called their profit margin is no longer their profit margin. It's your pay. You're no longer a wage slave. You own the value of your labor. So I love breaking that down for people, because that is something that gets so misconstrued by people who are anti-communist, to paint things as the commies want to take your house. No, we don't. We want to give you one if you ain't got one.
Right. Yeah. I want to interject here to two things I want to say. Right. So let's compare the USA to the USSR real quick. Right. The USA has a problem with people not having homes, so they install armrests in benches or spikes on flat pieces of concrete. The USSR had a problem with people not having homes, so they built massive apartment complexes to ensure that everyone had housing. And my second point is, look at any communist country historically with their home ownership rates. They're usually somewhere north of 80%. Ours is probably going to drop below 50% in the next couple of years. It's at like 53 or something like that, and it's consistently dropping.
I'm going to look it
up. While you look that up, I guess we can move on to the next statement in the comments. Solidified Nor fan said, communism isn't democracy, though.
So it's currently at 65.2%, while renter occupied housing units make up 34.8% of national stock. But still significantly lower than what it was in the USSR and literally any other communist country ever. It'd be much better to be in the 80 percentile range.
It's over 90% in communist China right now.
Right. Because again, what did they do to handle the issue of homelessness? They built housing.
Oh yeah, and the USSR. Let's circle back to that for a second. Not only did they build massive apartment complexes, rent was capped at 5% of your income.
Right. Never allowed to become unaffordable for you. Now they're like, you'd better make 3 times the rent. However, it's actually going to cost you the majority of your entire pay for the month.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So yeah, the next comment was, communism isn't democracy, though.
Do you want to break down democratic centralism?
Or the mass line, or the mass-based democracy position paper from the United Panther movement. I mean, what approach do we want to take to this? No matter how you break it down, democratic centralism is inherently more democratic than your representative democracy.
Yes, it is. I know DC is something that Comrade Shea is very passionate about. So if that's something you'd like to dive into, Comrade, feel free.
What is that? That democracy? There's no democracy in communism. Is that what they're saying? In essence?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's what they're saying. That's what we're figuring out how we're going to respond to.
Yep. If you'd like to break down democratic centralism for them, I know you can do so beautifully.
Well, God, give me a minute.
Okay.
This is.
I mean, let's start before we get into democratic centralism. Let's start with the mass line then. Let's keep it a little simpler, right? So the idea of the mass line is that the party, the vanguard party, I guess the way you're trying to paint it, the ruling class lives among the masses. They live in the same. I'm glad that you laughed at that. They live in the same conditions the masses do. They have the same problems in their lives that the masses do, and they talk to the masses about their problems and how to solve them. And you take the best ideas from the masses to fix the issues that society has. And obviously, when you get into how democratic centralism works, which, we'll leave to Comrade Che there in a second, but you'll see how every step of the way, there's a reason that it's democratic centralism, right? Wouldn't it just be centralism without the democracy? So that's why we want to break that down.
Well, it's democratic centralism because it gives everybody an opportunity to have a say on the question, And I think that when you deal with democratic centralism, like in the people, like in the Black Panther Party as an example, they had the Central Committee, and the Central Committee was a way of making sure that everything went smoothly, everything went according to how people wanted it. So when we look at democracy, as it is in the United States, it's not really democracy. It's not really democracy. I can't pronounce the word. Oh God! But anyway, it's not democracy. But when we look at a communist society, we see democracy because we see that everybody is having an opportunity to voice their opinions and choose and make choices. Which is elected, which is democratically collectively decided. It's something that is decided collectively. It's not something that is decided by a few people. You vote. Let's say, for instance, in this country, you vote, and you don't even know who you vote for because in the final analysis, whoever you vote for, it's not the person who's going to get the vote. So
right.
I mean, that's a start. That's all I got to say right now. I'm the start. I'll say some more later.
Well, I can add on to that of what I was saying a few minutes ago of breaking down how your vote doesn't mean jack fucking shit under a constitutional republic because the voting power is being skewed so that it is remaining held in the hands of those who are already wealthy and powerful. Democratic centralism is how we make your vote actually mean anything and actually be counted for what it is that you want, because it's actually being counted there when being asked, which action should we take? That is asked of the masses. The purpose of that central committee is so that each person coming from each portion of the community to represent the will of that masses is there to represent the masses of their community. And if they fail to do so, they are held accountable and can be replaced with someone who will actually communicate to the Central Committee what the vote of their people is. There is no room for an electoral college to be like, well, we see your votes, but fuck you, we don't care, we don't agree with you, so we're going to go with the elite line of bullshit that we want anyways, and piss off about it because you don't have a say because the law says that the electoral college can do this. What's legal is not always what's right.
Exactly.
Democratic centralism is how you fix that fuckery and make your vote actually count.
Yeah.
All power.
All power.
Anything else really good in the comments? Fired up now.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot. Nate said a few things. Where am I? Viva la Resignation said, well, shit, won't a lot of working class people be fascist too? I thought the proletariat were supposed to lead the revolution. The proletariat are going to lead the revolution.
Yeah.
We have to isolate the right and win over the people in the middle.
That part.
But yes, as the contradictions intensify, we are going to see a surge in fascist organizations. I would argue that we are already in that phase, and we need to be standing up to them. We need to be isolating them. Yep. We need to show a better way forward, or it's going to get real 1937 Germany real fucking quick.
Yep.
Let me say something on see, there's a lot of people that really honestly take the proletarian revolution as something, you know, that goes directly into communism, and that's not really what it is. Proletarian revolution is a step towards socialism, but it's also a step where a lot of people say, well, where's democracy? Where's communism? Well, none of that stuff really happening. I don't think in proletarian revolution, because proletarian revolution is actually a system where you're actually suppressing and trying to do away with the capitalist class, you know, and so that you could develop, you know, proletarian revolution the way it is. But it's still a dictatorship, and it's not a dictatorship like, you know, like Hitler or what's his name? Oh God, what's his name in Russia?
Oh, right now, Putin.
Oh no, what's his name in Russia? That after Stalin, Joseph Stalin. Not like that. You know, no, proletarian revolution means that you actually working on towards developing a system, but also you suppressing the capitalist class. Because as long as there's a capitalist class, this actually cannot be socialism. You can't. In a government, in a country where they're trying to, no. You know, that's why a lot of people, you know, are complaining about Cuba. They said, well, they ain't socialist. No, that's not socialism. That's still proletarian revolution, and it takes a long while, you know, to happen. You know, if I think that person feel that if Cuba was to try to even make attempts to become a socialist government, totally a real socialist government, they will be suppressed. You'll be overthrown by the capitalists, because you got to get rid of the capitalists before you can even develop a socialist system. I mean, that's all I got to say.
Right. They are dealing with.
I just want to piggyback off of one part you said, and then I'll hand it over to Zen. I'm sorry we started talking at the same time, but I'm going to paraphrase Mao. Right, a revolution is not a dinner party or a painting or picking a flower. A revolution is one class violently overthrowing another class.
That's right. That's what it is.
I'm right. It is. And that leads right into what I wanted to say, because a lot of folks do get that fear in them when they hear the word dictatorship of the proletariat, or that term, actually. The word dictatorship makes them go, fuck. But you need to understand in context of the proletariat. When we say all power to the people, we are talking about putting the political power in the hands of the people, of the masses. having that dictatorship instead of a few wealthy elite motherfuckers who don't get held accountable. It's literally a means of balancing the political power scales where that power is in the hands of the people to have our self-determination for our communities. Period. Not any individualist being commandist, none of that bullshit. The framework, the structure of democratic centralism is in place to prevent there being any commandism, to prevent there being any rise in those types of individualist things happening, because the accountability is there. It's the people who hold that power. These positions, Central Committee and other committees working to coalesce this, it's not some pedestal that you sit on. It's a responsibility to your community. Period.
Yeah.
All power.
All power.
Back to the comments. Nate said, it amazes me when they don't see a difference between private and personal property. Yeah, that's always a good one to go over on the air.
Yeah.
Then he went on to say, the truth is there is enough of everything in this world for everyone. Only the shadow government wants you to think differently because their power and their money relies on the scarcity of resources. And so those resources are suppressed.
Yep. We have a false scarcity of housing right now, for example, because of investment groups buying up all of the houses as soon as they hit the market so they can hold them as rental properties and stop people from having access to buy them. And when they do that, they also jack up the prices. They artificially inflate the value of the homes. I mean, look at what we're dealing with right now. A house that would have cost 100 to 150K 4 years ago is now going to be around 4 to 500K. And by the time you're done paying the rapist fucking interest rates that are on it right now, you're going to pay over $1 million for that 450K $1,000 house you're already getting raped on.
Yeah.
30-year loan, you're going to pay over $1 million for a house you would have gotten for 100K 4 years ago. Artificial inflation.
Or, we can just call it greed.
Greed. What's it called? Fucking greed sickness. And there was a thing I saw week before last of some of these investor cunts out here just giggling and happy as shit because they were saying that the rents you're paying right now of $2,800 a month for like a 2-bedroom spot, they can't wait to charge you $4,000 for it 2 years down the road. They're planning that. They are literally looking at the next few years as just opportunity to keep increasing the rate at which they rape your fucking wallet, where nobody will be able to afford to live anywhere. And we already have more empty houses than we do homeless people. I digress.
Wow.
Yeah. Nate also said Los Angeles just hit the big 4.0 for homelessness, literally 40%.
Jesus.
Where is that statistic from? I mean, I guess that doesn't really surprise me. Los Angeles was already unaffordable long before any of this started.
Right.
The next comment is, what the hell is the mass line? Can you fight fascism with it? I'm going to keep this very, very simple here, right? Can you fight fascism with it? Yes, if you can win over the masses.
Yes. The mass line is what Rob was breaking down earlier, of from the masses to the masses. We go to the masses to find out what it is that they need and bring that to meet with everybody else from other communities and go, these are the needs of our community. How about yours? And we seek out solutions to resolve those problems for our communities. And one of those problems is fighting fascism and all of its applications that oppress the masses.
All power.
Oh, wow.
All power.
This next comment is from Nate again. He's saying, look, communism can and should be democratic. Like it or hate it, the tyranny of the majority is democratic, which is why I still believe that the best way to do things is on an individual community basis, but I digress.
Well,
I mean, we also see the merit in that, comrade. Where do we start organizing? Our own communities,
yes.
our own blocks.
Yes.
You know, you have to build up. You can't build the top and then build down.
Right.
When you're building a house, the first thing you do is build the foundation.
Indeed.
You know, in Cuba, at the beginning of the revolution, that's what they had in each community. They had block communities, you know, and people, you know, the leadership will come together, you know, and present certain things to the community, to the community, and then the community will look it over and then send back the answers, and that's how they developed that's how the mass line was developed through the community. You know, so it has to be to the people. You can't do it otherwise.
Exactly. That's absolutely where it has to start. And we build from there into revolutionary intercommunalism, bringing those things together by supporting each other in what it is that each of our individual communities needs, because there's going to be a lot of overlap, but there's also going to be specificities to each community having unique issues to deal with. And sometimes, most of the time, that calls for that intercommunalist factor, to be able to work together to support each other and to be able to start creating our own lines of resources for things. You know, especially when it comes to food, for example, that we can work together, teaching each other in various communities how to build up these serve the people programs in manners that fit to your community's specific needs. If you're in a food desert, it doesn't matter if you're in an urban or a rural area, you can make use of what you have around you to grow food to provide for your community. If you're in an urban area, start snatching up these abandoned properties that are sitting empty. You know, how many city lots do we see with nothing on them because the houses had been abandoned and been torn down? Turn those into garden lots to feed the neighborhood. I've seen this happen firsthand in Flint. My friends started the Peace Mob Garden on just a couple of lots that had been abandoned that they managed to grab very cheaply from the land bank. You can also go about it in other manners of just seizing it too, depending, you know, there's options. But because of the investment in the community that was being made and started there with those couple of lots, that's now expanded to a full blown urban farm spanning the whole east side of Flint, many blocks in multiple directions. It is a farm and orchard now that supplies food once a week at Food Not Bombs at a local Methodist church to anybody in the community. And there ain't no bullshit being asked, no questions asked. You show up, you grab what you need. You know, here's a box, fill it up, grab the fresh produce that you need. It's all organically grown. These are things that can be replicated no matter where you're at. Whatever your material conditions are in your community, you can find a way to create these programs and no longer be dependent on, is the system's supply chain going to make sure you have enough food? Because especially in areas where we already have those food deserts, we can see where capitalism has fucking failed us. When the stores are closing their doors because they're more worried about, oh my gosh, poor people stole some food, we got to shut the fucking store down now, because that's part of what happened in Flint that was an incentive drive towards everybody building this community garden that grew into a farm, because we got left with food deserts. You can work with what's around you and bring your community together, raise their awareness that the supply chains under capitalism are fucking failing us. We've got to come together and provide these things for ourselves. That is called dual power. When we hold that power for our own access to things because we can produce them ourselves and not be dependent on the system for it, then that makes that system become moot.
All power. I'd kind of like to tie in the North Philly Peace Park here.
Yeah.
Because that is a prime example of exactly, for those of you that haven't heard of the North Philly Peace Park, because I hadn't until Chairman Shaka invited me to join him on May Day there. It is land seized that was owned by the Philadelphia Housing Authority, the largest owner of land in the city of Philadelphia. They are doing a lot with that space. They're literally building a fucking school. Hold on, let me pull up their website. They have a garden there, and they are holding programs like literally teaching the neighborhood youth how to fucking grow their own food. They hold defense classes there, teaching the neighborhood residents how to defend their own fucking neighborhood, and building a network so they don't have to call the fucking pigs if there's an issue.
Right.
There's a lot of groups that seem to do work in the North Philly Peace Park. I'm going to screen share here in a second. I really like the architecture they chose for this school. I am not trying to donate at this moment, though. So, urban farming. Can you read that? Can you read that, or should I just read it out loud?
Yeah, I could read it.
It's tiny and blurry. Will you read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. Land is the basis of human independence and farming the engine of community life. The Peace Park has grown into a popular charitable eco-campus and passive park that provides free programs to the greater Philadelphia community. The free produce programs are supported by the park's fence-free gardens and local donations. Since 2018, the park has given away more than 30,000 pounds of fresh, healthy produce. Our goal is to introduce as many local youth to agricultural practices. We want to help raise a generation of growers able to feed a nation. Community livelihood. The Peace Park believes in what is called the economic revolution, the movement to eliminate poverty and want by innovation and ethical utilization of local resources to create cooperatives and local micro industries. One such program, the Green Wall Street's The Black Market Initiative, a popular weekly local entrepreneur market of natural products. Most products are manufactured from the harvest of the garden and include items like soap, candles, and natural healing herbs. They actually have like a physical place.
That's what the fuck's up.
Like a physical store outside of the park.
I like that I'm seeing what's on screen right there of them producing their own extracts of certain herbs to help people. Okay, like elderberry right there, that is one of the best immune boosters you can get your hands on. If you're sick and you take elderberry extract, it's gonna kick your immunity up and help you knock that shit out like that. That's beautiful. They've clearly got people at the table who know processing of herbs and stuff to be making these tinctures so that people have natural medicines on hand. That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's developing your own resources. That's creating healthcare that's accessible and doesn't have fucked up side effects.
So this next part, there's another page that I will switch to in a second. But as Minister of Education, I'm going to focus on their educational aspect because it was truly inspiring to me. The Peace Park believes in the creation of a new revolutionary education system based on STEM, practical skills, and teaching of a thoroughgoing knowledge of self and others. The park's land-based educators have several school partnerships that provide curriculum units for K through 12 students and host school group visits to provide ecologically based programs that include planting, harvesting, landscape design and construction, composting, pollinators, plant identification, and art. The park has provided lectures and tours about our work to local universities and college students as well.
That's fucking beautiful.
Where is the... It's probably further down. No, it's probably
I love it. I love it. This is dual power in a nutshell, and I love it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and they have health and wellness programs too. They working with the park staff, wellness practitioners, and health professionals. The Peace Park provides free health and wellness community programs, including group counseling, art therapy, yoga, fitness, and cooking classes as a part of the monthly Self-Care Saturdays program. The Philly Peace Park articulates the concept of neighborhood joy, the belief that people can only truly be healthy when they have the power to fully benefit from their environment with democratic control over the institutions within their community.
That's beautiful. I dig it.
The school, that's a architect mock-up, but that is the school that they're building.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it's got some like African design elements to it, but it also kind of reminds me of the schools that the revolutionaries built in Vietnam.
It's dope. I dig it. And that's beautiful. They're doing that as a community, bringing their own resources to the table to make this happen. Not asking the fucking government for grants.
Right, exactly. They're not asking for a goddamn thing. They are doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, from the way I understand it, they will also be using that pavilion for, community events and things like that as well. If I understand the design, those sides open up.
That's what's up. That's cool. So it'll have like a totally indoor area and then like an indoor outdoor area to open up.
Right. Let's see. There's a few more comments, so I guess we should probably get back to that. But yeah, just to sum up though, the North Philly Peace Park is doing exactly what Minister Zen was just talking about: building dual power, building the institutions in your community, owning the power, the value rather of your labor. Having an alternative to the police, having an alternative to Walmart or Stop and Shop or Kroger for groceries, and I mean, their garden is only going to grow as they take more land.
Yep.
Which is the next phase. They announced that on May Day. This summer, beginning this summer, they intend to take the rest of the block.
Yep. I'd love to see that turn into a full-blown urban farm.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna like keep a cleared out gathering space and but right. Yeah, I mean the farm is definitely going to get bigger, I'm sure. So back to the comments. Well, this is basically just agreeing with what we said, but yeah, all the gerrymandering, voter roll purges, and lobbying in U.S. elections proves we don't have an actual democracy. And then a question: how do you isolate fascists? Well, I mean, first and foremost, we identify them, right, and we, make their line clear to the masses, and we make our line clear to the masses.
Yep. An excellent resource for finding those things. Look up IDAVOX. It's literally an Antifa resource where they have news, but they also have links on there to literally a catalog of all the Nazis they've identified, and it's constantly growing. So that's a great resource to look to for that first step of identifying who is a fucking problem. That right there, if y'all remember our first stream on January 6th, of 2021 when, you know, the fucking idiot attempted coup shit happened in DC, and within a few days I had kicked out a list of people in those videos I'd identified, like Matthew Heimbach. That's where I identified them at. I went to the Antifa resources for doxing Nazis and found a lot of people in that crowd like that. Oh, no, hey, here's that motherfucker, there's that motherfucker, and that motherfucker. Excellent resource. All power.
Wow.
All power.
Yes. That was good.
Nate said, in a capitalist society plagued with accelerationism, aka the US, it is inevitable to have fascism. And I agree. That's why the US needs to be dismantled.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good question. You keep saying proletariat, but all people aren't just the working class. What about the homeless? Where do they fit in?
Lumping.
They are lumpen, meaning their relationship with the means of production is broken. But their needs will still be met. I mean, fuck, I'll go as far as to say as the capitalist needs will be met, but their wants won't.
Right.
They're gonna have a roof over their head. They're gonna have a job. And if they don't want a job, then I guess then they're gonna go to prison or something. But you know,
they just won't be allowed to own 20 fucking houses that should be belonging to 19 other families. They get to keep the one.
Just one.
Yeah.
And not a mansion either.
Right.
In fact, I think that former capitalists should be, you know, required to live in an apartment for a set amount of time. But
yeah. Yeah. A very tiny one. The ones that, you know, are like a walk-in fucking closet that they want a couple $1,000 for.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mean the ones that I still can't fucking afford?
Yeah. Yeah. That are smaller than my fucking RV. Yeah. Yeah, those ones.
Yeah. And Nate was right on that in the comments too. He said they will have a place, they will have a job and food and shelter. No one is useless.
Right.
All power.
They're just not going to be allowed to exploit anymore.
And then Nate went on to say, can you explain for a minute the idea that every able body is an able body ready to be put to use to ensure that even the marginalized and vulnerable non-able are able to be taken care of? Well, I mean, that's easy. Karl Marx said, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need.
Damn right.
That's what he said.
Yep. And that varies on a case-by-case basis. Okay. I'm disabled, but there's still certain forms of work that I'm capable of doing because they don't require the use of my incredibly fucked spinal cord. Like this right here, I can still do work on the computer, for example, and be able to contribute things. You know, that would go on a case-by-case basis for everybody of what's your skill set, what's your capabilities, what's your limitations, so we can keep those in mind and respect them. Ethical standards for treatment of labor.
All power. Let's see. We are going on almost 2 hours, so I think I'll do these last two comments and then we can start working on wrapping it up. But Nate, yes, I have heard about this. He asked, did you all hear about that pizza shop that split the profits of the store evenly among the employees for one single day? It equaled out to $78 an hour per person.
Yep. That's a fabulous example of what happens when you don't have a useless fucking owner doing no work and taking the lion's share of the money produced.
Right. There was 7 people, 7 employees running the pizza shop that day. They each took home almost $1,000. That's how badly every one of us is getting ripped off. That's just
Right.
a little mom and pop pizza shop. Imagine how that would look at Domino's.
And now I've seen people pointing out that the reason why, because their sales did go up that day in comparison to their norm, but that's because the people were so excited when they heard the announcement that that day all the workers would be making all of the money. Now imagine if that had a domino effect with all of these businesses of people going, you know what? This place is actually paying everybody who works there properly. I'm going to go spend my money there instead of this other place. So to me, I don't find them pointing out that, oh, well, it was a sales job to be a detraction. I think it's something to highlight that people choose to spend their money with places that are more friendly to the workers. When they see the opportunity, they're voting with their dollars.
And I mean, your average person will do that when it's practical.
Yeah.
Chip, and I think this is the last comment that we're going to take for the night. Chip had earlier said that centralism sounds authoritarian. Nate said, Chip Barnes, explain. And his response is regions that act separately but prioritize self-sufficiency and have a higher degree of sovereignty. The governments are localized and there is much less chance of federal government overreach. They don't intervene much unless it is absolutely necessary for the survival of the region. So it sounds to me like you're talking about building a grassroots government from the bottom up. It sounds like you're kind of sort of describing a watered down version of democratic centralism.
Right. Whereas a full blown one, bringing into play revolutionary intercommunalism, would actually bring to the table the balance you're seeking there.
Right. I don't know what we have scheduled for the next couple of weeks, but we should do a piece specifically on revolutionary intercommunalism.
Fuck yeah. Let's do that.
We can listen to some Huey P. Newton talk about it, and then we can, probably have Chairman Shaka on, honestly. I mean, who else?
Yeah, let me say this. Yesterday I was on the computer and I seen that they got Asada in Cuba, and it's YouTube. YouTube has Asada in Cuba. We should take, I'm not saying immediate, but we should look at that and maybe put it into one of our assignments. Asada in Cuba. That's the title of it, and it's in YouTube. And Asada goes. I went into it too. Asada goes into her lifestyle, her life, and how she was prosecuted, how she was, hitting and beaten up and all that stuff, and how eventually, man, some of her comrades came and saved and free and liberated her, and eventually she went to Cuba. But it's a good video to watch. Asada, the name of it is Asada in Cuba.
Thank you for the recommendation, comrade. I'm going to search that when we get done here, and I'll grab the link for us to watch on movie night, which in the audience, Wednesday nights, we have the Asada Shakur Book Club's Revolutionary Film Night. So if any of you would like to join us for viewing that movie, hit me up on Facebook, send me a message, and I'll send you the link. All power.
All power.
All power. Does anybody have any closing statements, or should I just roll the tunes?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. You did good.
All power.
This is
discussion.
Yeah, this has been a really good discussion. The comments were on point tonight too. A lot of educational moments. Sally Mae said all power in the comments. Good to see you, comrade. Yeah, I mean, I think the comments were pretty on point. There was a lot of teachable moments, and overall the conversation flowed pretty well tonight. I'm really glad that we did this. Specifically covering genocide and fascism, or genocide abroad and fascism at home. I'd still like to put together a specific piece on Palestine, which we've been talking about doing forever, but we have not secured guests for it. I'm sure eventually at some point we'll just do it with UPM people if we don't end up reaching out to other guests. So keep an eye out for that because it's long overdue.
I mean, we're live right now. Let's put a call out. If anybody watching this is involved with any of the Palestinian liberation organizations, or Jewish Voices for Peace, the student encampments, any org that is standing up and protesting this genocide in Palestine, reach out, send me a message, and we can coordinate and bring you on the show to discuss that. All power.
All power.
Oh.
All right. Well, with that, I guess I will roll the music.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
What?
That joke, I said roll that beautiful bean footage.
Oh.
Sorry.
Party har har.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. Just don't worry about it. Learn how to use